The most common mistake in conversations is focusing on what people claim to know, as opposed to how they came to know it. Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay, How to Have Impossible Conversations. My mother didn't like Halloween, and she refused to participate in any way. To my disappointment, she was entirely unwilling to concede that for my young son, Halloween was just a day for make-believe, a day to celebrate what it is to be a kid before life gets in the way. My little brother and I did that when we were growing up, so I'm not sure at what point she concluded that any participation in this holiday was not to be condoned, regardless of motives or intent. She had her reasons, I'm sure, but we couldn't talk to each other like that. We could never seem to navigate our differences to a point of understanding, let alone a point of agreement. I can see now, in hindsight, that I should have been trying to look past the what on the surface and into the how. The how being how she arrived at her particular beliefs. If I had been able to do that, I think we would have found common ground, just as most people are sure to do when they stop focusing on the what and sincerely inquire as to the how someone has come to a different conclusion. Because we all have our reasons for believing what we believe. And we forget that the circumstances that have led us to our particular beliefs are entirely unique to each one of us, largely unknown to everyone else. So often what is taken for granted as what must be common knowledge is merely the result of very specific circumstantial experience, feeling familiar only to those that have lived parallel experiences. To judge someone entirely according to where they've arrived, without due consideration for how they got there, exemplifies ignorance. The absurdity of such a disposition is only magnified in the company of family, company in which it should be easier to see that our horses are in the same race. Family has the shared goal, the shared interest in what's good for the family. So for the sake of the common good, it would be prudent to understand the hows and the whys that compel our mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters to disagree with us. Understanding being something entirely separate from agreeing. And it's not limited to family, not by any means. If I'm in a race and my competitor chooses a significantly different route than the one I'm on, wouldn't it be astute to thoroughly consider why? Even as competitors, we're still trying to get to the same place. What is she seeing that I am not? Is it particular to her? Or could it better inform me too? Or is it both? Because it's never just that she isn't seeing what I'm seeing. It's that she is seeing something that I am not. generally speaking, both conditions are always equally true. She isn't seeing what I'm seeing, not the way I see it, and she is seeing something that I am not. It gets to the very heart of what is arguably the greatest advantage afforded us in the evolutionary race of the physical world. Theory of mind and empathy are metaphysical abilities enabling us to rise above what is merely material, transcending a singular physical experience to join and supplement a plurality. The resulting collective could be considered as one collective consciousness, and each contributing life could be seen as a context for that consciousness. Every context, every life, specifically for its areas of difference, brings depth and dimension to what is still one and the same. That is where strength resides. Not in denial, but in the acknowledgement of and cooperation between differences. At the end of the day, we're all in the same boat. If we all congregate together on the same side, because it's the right side, the boat will loll dangerously to that side and likely capsize. We serve each other better by honoring the distances between us, especially when they're great. As counterintuitive as it can feel, closing the gaps between us can often do more to block out the light than anything else. The momentary sense of security found in sameness inevitably falls to the pervading darkness that is inherent to all confined, restricted, limited spaces. And I am well acquainted with that confinement. A darkness that was my denial of the unavoidably subjective nature to all lived experience. I can see now that my life can never be anything more or less than a singular context through which reality is supposed. I can never be entirely right, but that's not to say that I'm wrong. It's just to realize that as an individual, I'm incomplete. There is no single one of us that can ever compare to the intersubjective dimensionality that arises as a result of shared experience. With the holiday season coming up on us again quickly, many of us are dreading much of what a shared experience just might look like, specifically because our nation's challenges seem to have become so thoroughly polarized. But I find myself feeling surprisingly hopeful. Hopeful because where great differences gather, great opportunities abound. The greatest revelations have always been realized when boundaries are pushed and foreign ideas are entertained. this age we're living in now, to our own detriment, promotes the opposite. So it's up to each one of us to see these family gatherings for the true potential they represent. We must each take it upon ourselves to seize every opportunity to see the world through another's eyes, remembering that it's not what someone else believes that is important. Rather, it is how they came to believe it. That is the path to understanding. That's the path to enlightenment. No matter how different each of our beliefs may appear at the surface, underneath, our core values are nearly always strikingly similar, especially in the company of one's own family. I wish I could have the opportunity to hear my mother one more time, to listen to her say the things she thought were important enough to share, especially those things, those beliefs that differed so significantly from my own. I wish I had been good enough to extend her the respect that I would extend now, realizing that her unique lived experience was no less valid than my own, and I could have only benefited from understanding how she came to believe the things she believed. But in her time, I was more concerned with being right, and that has cost me. No more.